Hello and welcome back to awtoolbox.com. My name is Glenn Keller, and in this demonstration we're going to reinforce some of our knowledge that we've picked up on object types in the active workspace environment by going through the run through of creating an object. This is going to take us through several different roles, so just pay attention as you go through it. Only one of these elements will be done by any particular role, and we'll try and flush that out as we go. So in the previous video, we talked about the differences between object types in the system. We emphasized the difference between an item, a part, a document, a data set, and so on. We began to look at things like relation trees and how we can interact with data, but you can't really understand it without actually going through the motions. So in this demonstration, we have the task to create and release a new part. So this new part is created by someone else, and we just got to get it in the system. In this case, we're not using a CAD system in any way, but we are provided the part information, and we need to make sure that that's related to the revision of that data before we submit it for approval. So in this case, we are a brand new user, and we need to act like it. So I've been working with a generic DBA user for a while. We're just going to go ahead and log in as a generic user, an engineer, and we're going to go through these tasks. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and log out of the InfoDBA account and get staged up as the user that I am. So in here, we're going to come in, sign out. This is one of the key points of doing anything inside of the system, is just making sure you are who you are. So I'm going to log in as user01. And in this case, you will, if you're signing on fresh and new, there's a good chance that you'll get this product excellence program. Some companies enable it, some don't, but definitely seek information before you click agree. In my case, I'm going to hit decline. And now I am that new user. So my task is to create that object. This may be a workflow task that's been sent to me to drive this, or it may just be a request. In this case, it's just a request. So I know it's a new part. So for one, I could just click new part here. We'll go the long way first, and then we'll come back in and try and speed it up a little bit. So I'm going to go to Explorer. That's my desktop. That's where I typically create new data. And then you can see I've got my home folder here. Now I'm creating something new. So I'm going to go to my new stuff folder, and that's where I'm going to build it. So I've got that selected. I'm going to go ahead and change my layout real quick back to tree and details, just so I can get a little bit of information here. And then I'm going to come up to the top and choose new, add. I know it's going to be a part, so I'm going to say part and select that as the type. It auto generates a new ID. This can be different, so if yours is different, it's based on who you are and what your business practices are. Same with the revision ID. In this case, it's just going to be A. And then I'm going to put this in, I'm going to say example name. Now I'll come back and update this with the actual name of the component. I can't actually remember what it is. But I do know the ID of it. So this is for 088 star component. I think it's 966. And we'll update that information after the fact. Right now, the goal is just to create the object, and then I can come back through and modify it. I definitely need a design applied to this. I could add the design and add it to the component as I'm building it. I could uncheck this. It just completely depends on your requirements. In my case, I'm just going to attach a part, so I did uncheck this. I could pick a unit of measure, so all of the different units of measure that you could think of are preloaded in here. That's for the structural component of this, and so I'm just going to do each. It is a component in a BOM line. And then I'm going to supply the finish type. So this one maybe has color on it, and I do purchase it. So I'm going to set that up. Now, I'm not working in any projects here, but just note, if you are working in a project, you could click Add Project. And you could add this to a bucket of information that only certain individuals have access to, and then click Add. Now, once you click add, typically it just gets created in your new stuff folder here, and that's it. You just go edit it and get it set up. Sometimes your administrators have set it up to where when you click add, it just submits to the workflow automatically, and then you drive everything with a task. In this case, it's just in a working state. I can see a whole bunch of information when I'm standing on it. I can see there are no attachments to it yet, and what have you. So next step is to attach the related data. I have this A revision here. I need to get it approved, so I need to attach the data that helps define it. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say add to add some files to it. So I'll say add. Now I can click select file here and I can add that. I could also hit search to search for existing data using the global search or advanced search to find things like the mount components or other things that may help me attach data here. If I do PDF, you can see I get a bunch of PDFs. So it's this object here, but I've got a new update to it that I'm kind of building here. 088966A. So I could pick this and say add it, and I'd be done if I had that there. But in this case, I'm pulling it from another source. So I need this to not be in this table. I'm going to go ahead and cut it using the scissors up here. You could also right click and choose cut. So right click cut helps me out. It says it was cut to the clipboard. I didn't delete that object. It's still there. If I cut it, it stays there in the system. It just removes its reference to this other object. So I'm going to click add again. And I could select the file this time and actually come in and find it. It's this one right here, the part file, and choose open. So at that point, it picks it up. It's CAE geometry. I could come down and say, I want this. This is actually not CAE geometry, and this is something else. So I could scroll through. In my case, it is the UG part or UG master dataset. Now that type is completely dependent upon my rules in the system and what the out-of-the-box ones are. If you're saving in from CATIA or NX or other types, they'll typically get set based on the defaults. And then I need to specify a relationship. Now each of these selections changes how you can interact with that table. If you choose specifications, typically that's something that's specifies or gives an enhancement information about the selected part. References are pieces of information that don't really change. If you're adding references, you don't want to release that data, and typically the workflows work a little different. Manifestations is going to be similar to your CAD data in the system. So depending on how you attach this and based on your rules in your system, you select a relationship. In this case, I'm just going to pick specifications and it'll add it to the table. Now I'm going to do that a couple more times. I had some more data that helps define it. So I'm going to say select file, and you can see it's here again. Now, instead of selecting the next one down, which is this drawing part, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to drag and drop it. So in here, I've got my drawing part here. I'm going to drag onto this and see how it turns blue. So I can just drag directly from the operating system onto that select file. And then I can say this is going to be something else, right? So I could say this is going to be a different type of object in the system. I could make it the geometry. I could make it a UG master. It just depends. So in this case, I'm just going to pick add again. And I've added another file to this. Now, finally, if I didn't want to use the add feature at all, depending on whether this is enabled in your system or not, I could come in here and you can see there's a describing PDF here. So any of these, you could do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that PDF and I'm going to drag it onto that location in the system. It dropped it into the table. So if you switch to the table layout, you get them all three listed like this. And then if you try and drag onto the table layout, and you hover over the header, it'll give you some tactile input saying that this is where it's going to drop it. So just a little tip, but just note it does identify that what was dropped already exists in the table. So if you accidentally try and drop one that already exists, you have to actually choose to create a new object or replace the existing object. So I'm going to say create. And basically now there are two of that same file underneath of there, and I don't know which one's which unless I remove it. So I'll cut this one out for now. So now I have some relationships associated to this object, and I can go back over to the overview. This is going to be a new part. It is referencing that information. I'm going to choose edit, and in here you can see the drawing information is now showing up in here. So I can scroll through it and I can see information related to this component. And I can see it's a finger clamp. So I'm going to come into the name. I'm going to call it finger clamp RH fixture wide. So it's just a new version of it. I'm using some other sources to kind of create it. And description is based on 088966. Now there are better ways to do this. You could do a save as off the existing component to do and achieve the same thing. But in this case, again, just kind of creating new. There are different attributes available in here, so depending on what you have to select. This isn't an in-house design. This was purchased in this case, and then it is a concept at the moment. I have not completed this, so I could set it as a pilot, a prototype, a pre-production, and based on the maturity of that, I could escalate that through workflows or change it. So in this case, I'm setting it to a concept, and then I can set other values down below. I'm going to go to attachments, and then notice it'll try and save before it switches the page, and then it updates everything. I'm going to go ahead and go to the relations tree, and you can see now I can see each one of those components in that tree. If you're familiar with the Rich client, this is very much like the details pane. So in this case, I have now created an object. I've modified its properties. I've added stuff to it, and I need to go ahead and get it approved. So typically I'll right click and I'll choose submit to workflow. Just note you cannot submit the object to a workflow if it's checked out. So make sure it's checked in and then do submit to workflow. Now you can access that same button from the top area up here under manage, submit to workflow. So either way, right click works a little bit better, a little bit faster. And then in the workflow designer application, you will have a list of templates that you can select from. If you don't have a template here, you don't have the correct object selected or created, or maybe your administrators haven't completed the setup. I'm going to go ahead and click all here. And you may or may not have the all. If you don't, you'll have to pick through what's available. And then you can see there's multiple templates available. So a lot of times as a user, I'll come in here and I'll only have one template I can submit to. So all that's been fine-tuned for me. In this case, I'm going to come down and I'm going to choose a workflow that I know gives me a task. So I'm going to say requirement sign off. So in this, I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And this workflow is very generic. It's going to submit it to the workflow. I can see I have a new task over to my left-hand side. And then if I choose inbox here, and I have a task. Now we will break into workflows a lot more in depth in future videos, but just note your inbox gives you a list of tasks that you typically are assigned in a workflow. You can select the task and you can see what's all required by the task. So in this case, I have a task and I can go into the attachments and I can see and review all of the data. I could download it, I could select it and open it. I could right click and say open a new tab up at the top. So open a new tab. I could investigate that data a little bit and then go back. But the end result of this is to essentially come in and pick somebody to sign off on it. So I'm going to have one of my DBAs sign off on it, and then I could pick a who all needs to out of who I chose. And then I'm going to add an additional reviewer here of who I am. So somebody in the engineering group. And then hit add, and then I'm going to set a numeric quorum of 1. So only one of those individuals needs to sign off on this. And then I can see there's a preview of some of the associated data, and I could use this little drop down to open that or cycle through it. I could also collapse it like I just did, but everything is kind of presented right here. So at that point, if I come in, I can go ahead and complete the workflow. It'll go through and everything will disappear. So if I come into Home, Explorer, I could search for that object, but I still have it here. I've got my finger clamp RH fixture, and I can see that it says perform sign-offs. So if I try and edit this object, so if I come up and say edit, notice there's no commands available now. This has been released. So this object is now locked down, and if I wanted to make a change to it, I would need to revise it or perform a save as to generate a new ID to do so. This has been a small demonstration on creating a new component, adding some data to that component and getting it submitted into a workflow, and just kind of running through the motions. In the next demonstration, we're going to do a revise to this object and really dive into some changes we may want to make to the components within it.